Today's daf is daf Chav Zayin, and we'll pick it up where we left off yesterday. Man tana lahot and tana rabbanan, and we're almost up to the mission of Vidrei Onsun. We just have a piece to fill in from yesterday's sugya, and we have now a brisa, and the Gemara is analyzing to whom can we attribute the authorship of this brisa. Now we're talking about a person who takes a neder. Nadar mechamisha b'nei adam ke'echad. He imposed an isa neder on a group of 5 people ke'echad. Huta li echad mehem hutshu l'kulam. If he's matir one of them, let's say with Pesach or Charata, and he says he never would have taken the neder on that particular person, then hutshu kulam, then the entire neder falls apart, it collapses. And this is based on the principle, as we saw yesterday, of neder shehuter miktsasa huter kulo, batal miktsasa batal kulo. But now he has another case. He imposed the neder on 5 people, chutz mi echad mehem. And now in this case, the brisa surprises us and tells us that when he is matir the neder for one of them, who mutar v'hein asurim, that the neder does not fall apart. So what's the difference now between the reisha and the seifa? In the reisha, the neder is completely batel. In the seifa, it remains valid as far as the other 4 people. And the answer is that if at the beginning, when he took his neder, imposing an isa on 5 people, he used the language kulchem asurim, but the difference is, what did he say when he was matir one of them? In the reisha of the first case, which we said the neder is batal, at the time that he changes his mind, he's what we call machlif dvarav, and he says ploni uploni asurim. So therefore, what he's doing is, in his chazara, is he's removing one of the people from the original neder, so that the original neder now falls apart. In the seif, on the other hand, we're talking about a case where even now, when he's matir one of them, he's still mamid dvarav. He still says, well, if I would have known that I would want to be matir one of them, I would have said, kulchem asurim chutz me'echad mehem. And he's validating and reiterating his original neder. And therefore, we don't apply the principle of huta miktsasa, huta kulo. There was nothing that fell apart in the original neder. He's reiterating the original neder. So the Gemara wants to know now which Tana is of the opinion that in the case of Machlif Dvarav, which was, as we said before, the reisha of this brisa, we would still say that Huter, just one second. Right. Sorry. Who is the Tana of this brisa? That in the case of Machlif Dvarav, that was the reisha, we're going to say Huter Kulo, the entire neder falls apart. And on the other hand, in the case of the seif of Maimid Dvarav, Lo Huter Kulo. The verse says the following: Ile Rabba. If we're going to try to figure out who is the author of this brisa, according to Rabba Shita, and we're going to go over Rabba Shita in just a second. So the reisha, in a case we said was Machlif Dvaro, and he's going to say now, instead of Kulchem, he's going to say each one of them, he's going to identify each one of the 5 people by name. He's going to say Ploni, Uploni Asurim. So that's got to be Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva holds that even in a case of Machlif Dvarov, so Lohu to call a neder. How do we work out the ratio according to Rabba in the case of Machlif Dvarov, and the neder falls apart, but the Sefer Divrei HaKol, we're going to have to say the following, that only Rabbi Akiva would say, according to Rabbah, and the Rabbanan are going to reject Rabbi Akiva, that Machlif Dvarov, in the case of the Reisha, is Huta Miktaso to Kulo, where the Rabbanan would say Lo Huta Kol Neder. So that according to Rabbah, we have to interpret and attribute the Reisha to Rabbi Akiva. But the Sefer, that's a case of Mamid Dvaro, in which we said Kulo Masurim, Chutz Miploni, and we're not going to be mad to the rest of the balance of the people. That's going to be according to everyone, meaning even Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbah, concedes that in the case of Mamid Dvaro, we don't apply the principle of Huta Miktsasa, Huta Kulo. So basically, to sum up, according to Rabbah, this brisa perfectly fits into the Shita Rabbi Akiva. But the L'Rava, according to the opinion of Rava, then the Sefer will have to be like the Rabbanon, whereas the Reish is Divrei HaKol. Again, Rava Shita was, and in the case of Machlif Dvaro, everybody agrees with the Miktaso to Kulo. Even Beit Shammai, even the Rabbanon of Rabbi Akiva, there was never a debate about that. So the debate was only in the case of Mamid Dvaro, where Rabbi Akiva held that in Mamid Dvaro, despite the fact that he reiterates and reconfirms his original neder, nevertheless, Huta Miktaso, Huta Kulo. And therefore, the Sefer here, which says in the case of Mamid Dvaro, is the balance of the people are Asurim, that has to be like the Rabbanan. So it's a bit odd here, but it comes out that the ratio works out according to everyone, because that's Machlif Dvaro. Everybody agrees that Machlif Dvaro, Huta Miktaso to Kulo, whereas the Sefer cannot be attributed to Rabbi Akiva, who holds that even in the case of Mamid Dvaro, we apply the principle of Huta Miktaso to Kulo according to Rava. So the Sefer is going to have to be, according to Rava, a reflection of the Shitas Chachamim. And this leads us to the Mishnah now of Nidrei Onsim. What are Nidrei Onsim? Says the Mishnah, Idiro Chavero Sheyochal Etzlo. What's happening here is that Reuven is extending an invitation to Shimon. Shimon wants to strengthen that invitation to make sure that it will be implemented, which means that he himself will take up Reuven on his offer, on his invitation, and show up at Reuven's table. And he says to Shimon, and Shimon says to Reuven, you know what? You should impose upon me a neder if I don't come to show up at your suda. And of course, Reuven, we'll call him the Mazmin, complies with the request of the Muzman of Shimon, and he imposes such a neder on Shimon. And then what happens is, at the end of the day, the Muzman, we'll call him Shimon, wanted to show up at the table of Reuven. That was always his intention from the get-go. but circumstances beyond his control prevented him from coming to the Suda. He was ill, or his son was ill, and he had to take care of his son, or Ikro Nahar. Now, as far as Ikro Nahar is concerned, that's called an ones, and that means that the river was overflowing. Apparently, when the autumn came, or shall we say the spring came, the snow from the mountains on top started melting, and there were like streams of water coming into the river below, and it's impossible to cross the river. That's the Rosh Hashanah. So that's a very unusual kind of onus, not something that Shimon could have predicted. I guess maybe even the scientists couldn't predict it. And in such a case, which is an ones she'eino matzui, that's called nidrei onsim. He did not anticipate such an onus. Now, later on, we'll have a situation where a person is on a raft or a small boat that he's trying to get to the other side of the river, and something happens and he's not able to do so. That apparently is going to be an ones matzui. And that's called Pascha Mavra. He writes here in the Masechet Shalafamim Hamabores Nintzeis the Ivro Asheni Shalanor. So I'm not exactly sure what happened in Pascha Mavra. We'll have to wait until we see it here on Omid Beis. The Gemara tells us the following story, which seems to contradict our Mishnah. Ahu Gavra. So we're gonna identify this person as what we call the plaintiff. And the plaintiff has a shtar upon which he bases his lawsuit against the defendant. The Atis Zachvasa Bebeidina. And he hands over his shtar to the Bezdin. Zachvasa means his chus, the base on which he has a winning claim, so to speak. So he has evidence with the shtar, and he passes on his shtar to Bezdin. Not sure exactly. I guess maybe he needs to authenticate his shtar and bring witnesses to testify that the signatures are not counterfeit. So he, in a sense, deposits his shtar in the hands of Bezdin, and he asks Bezdin for a stay of, let's say, 30 days, in which he'll bring whatever proofs he needs to Bezdin. And Bezdin is not afraid that he's just postponing the din. See, this would make more sense if we're talking about the love, actually. Let me offer a slightly different interpretation of exactly what went on over here. Maybe your commentary is better than mine. The Masechet is not 100% clear. If you look, for example, in Rashi here, which I'm not sure it's Rashi, but anyway, he says, Shehevi Shtari Zchuyosov LeBezdin. Yeah, he doesn't tell you who actually brought the shtar, whether it's the malva, the plaintiff, the toveh, or the lover. I suspect it might be the lover, but again, what exactly is the shtar that he's holding on to? Let me just close the door here. Maybe the lover, the defendant, has a shtar shovar to prove that he paid off the chov. Now, normally Bezdin would say to the lover, look, buddy, if you don't have ample proof, let's say, for example, your shtar is suspected to be a mezuyah, then why are you delaying 30? Why should we give you 30 days? Maybe you're going to fly the coop. But since the lover gives over his shtar to Bezdin, that sort of calms down Bezdin, and they allow him that 30-day period of time to try to substantiate his evidence. Fi Omar, and I think it means that the judges ask for a certain statement, a certain declaration is part, namely, Ilo Asenad plus, if I don't come back within 30 days to substantiate any evidence that I have to support my claim, then Libatlun Hani Zachvose. I hereby nullify all my rights to claim. Well, now the Masechet says, La'uchal ligvos b'shtar, so he's talking about the malva, the plaintiff. So the plaintiff delivers and deposits his shtar in the hands of the Bezdin, and asks for a 30-day period of time. And the malva, the tovea, says, if I don't come within 30 days, then all my rights to claim against the defendant should be batel, should be null and void. Now what happens at the end of the 30 days? Itness. He was prevented from returning to Bezdin by virtue of some mitigating, shall we say, unforeseen circumstance. Let's say his son took ill, right? The law said he didn't show up. And now he wants Bezdin to grant him another extension. Give me another week. Give me another day. Amar Rav Huna, batel zachvose. I would add a word here, kvar batel zachvose. So that it means that Rav Huna is not concerned with onus. And Rav Huna is going to say to him, look, you didn't make any such a condition that if you don't show up in 30 days because of onus, then it's not called 30 days. And only if you don't come to establish your rights in Bezdin because you decide not to come because you don't have rayas or whatever it might be. You didn't make those limitations. You made an outright statement that imlo asina plus in yoma is libatos chuse, and my star is batel. And this means hodas baldin kimeya edim dovi. So again, the sheet of Rav Huna is a very chiddush, a very extreme sheet. He's saying that we're talking about an onus that was not foreseen. He never thought about that possibility, and yet his star is batel because of Odas Baldin. He made a statement that 30 days go by and my star is batel. That's it. Odas Baldin is Kameya Edim. Basically, his declaration is that if I don't come in 30 days, then Odas Baldin, Kameya Edim, that my star is not worth a dime. So again, I don't think you have to go. The Ran is talking in terms of, well, why didn't he clarify his Tanai when he made it? And he should have said that this Tanai is conditional, that I don't come because I don't come, but not because I'm prevented from coming. I don't know if you need any of that. I think you could circumvent the whole discussion here of the Ran. Simply go straight forward and say, there's halacha of Odas Baldin. I'm telling you, if I don't come in 30 days, then forget about the shtar. The shtar is bata. Amalei Rava. So Rava turns to Rav Huna, and he has ammunition in his arsenal because of our Mishnah, and he says, Anusu. The reason why I didn't come within the 30-day period is because of circumstances beyond his control. And the Torah doesn't consider someone responsible for circumstances beyond his control. Anas Rachman Patre, one of the most famous 3 words in Shas. The Ksiv, in the Parsha of Naru Rasa, it says, La Naru Lo Sasa Dav. We can't punish this woman who's a victim of rape. And you can't say, well, she should have screamed and yelled because she was out there in the field. No one could hear her. Here also, the reason why I didn't come until after the 30-day period is because of onus. So why should he lose his shtaros, his chuyos, when it wasn't his decision or his will not to show up in 30 days? Maybe you'll say that we don't implement the capital punishment in a case of onus, but that has nothing to do with Tanai and Mammon, where he's chayav even if he didn't fulfill the Tanai because of onus. What about our Mishnah? It says Nidrei Onsim, Hidiru Chaver Shochal Etzel V'chol Hu Chol Avno Oshikvanor Harelu Nidrei Onsim. So we're not talking about a chiv misa, and we're not talking about onshim. We're talking about when the neder is chal, and the neder is mutter. Why? Because the reason why he was misakim and he didn't come within that invitation, within the framework of that invitation, he didn't come to show up at his table, is because he was ma'ukav machmas onetz. He was prevented because of onetz. Now again, according to the Ran, we have to enter into the whole psychological question. What would he have said in the Tanai? What should he have said in the Tanai? So we don't say, well, when he took the neder, he should have said, if and circumstances are beyond my control, then the neder shouldn't be chal. He didn't add that whole shtickle Torah. And yet we assume that this is not called lo yovo etzlo. This is not a situation where he didn't come to eat at his friend's banquet. And so to here, in a case where he gave a shtar zechuyos to Bezdin, and he didn't say, well, if I'm honest with this and that it shouldn't be chal, but nevertheless, we assume that he did not stipulate the 30-day period of time, even in a case of onus. So we see that onus rachmana patre is not just the ptur and onshim, but it's afkas kiyum atanai. We don't consider kiyum atanai but onus. So we're now asked to Rava, if you, according to Rava, that if you couldn't come because of onus, and therefore matfish darasav and bezdin, if he didn't show up within 30 days because of an onus situation, he doesn't lose his chuyosov. Mehadis, now what are you going to do with the Mishnah Gittin? The Mishnah says that a person gives a gift to his wife, and he says, so the kiyum atnai, which would be makayim the get, is imlo basi within that 12 months. And umes b'tok 12 chodesh. Why didn't he show up before the end of the 12 months to fulfill the t'nai of imlo basi? Is because he was honest. Never he died. So if the kiyum atnai of Ibia of 12 months was machmas ones misa, hareza get. This is mamish, a slap in cold water in the face of Rava. Hareza get. Why? Because there was a kiyum atnai of lo basi. He didn't show up. What do you mean he didn't show up? Minis in this. The reason he showed up is because never is gestorben. Eluchaon is gadol mizer. So a kiyum atnai ba'oris against Rava in the Mishnah's frame of reference again is considered a kiyum atnai, and the get goes into effect. This, despite the fact that the kiyum atnai was ba'oris. So how can you, Rava, say that we completely nullify a case of onus? And the Gemara now is going to have to come up with an answer to differentiate between the get case and the matfis chuyosov case. And that's going to be Amri Dilma Shani Hasan. That get is different. That even in a kiyum atnai ba'onis, the get is chal. And we're going to do a psychological analysis of what his will is. Does he want to get to be chal? He had to do it miyachshav.